Translator, Reverie, Editor, Kurisu. Big Metalhead let out a cold snort and barked, "Open the way for us!"
Hey!
Big Metalhead, hold your temper. The small skiff glided forward once more. A strange radiance flickered ahead, as though the vessel were forcing its way through a viscous, invisible membrane, squeezing through a sticky expanse of space before bursting out the other side. "Big Brother Metal, please step aboard," the 4 men called out. Ling Han and the others mounted the boat. The 4 rowers bent their backs and pulled at the oars again, guiding the craft as it pressed back through that strange barrier. Why is this little lady clutching a brick? When their gazes fell upon Helian Shun Shui holding the brick, suspicion flickered in their eyes, as though they wondered whether she intended to smash their boss's skull with it. Ling Han threw his head back and laughed. "This girl lacks a sense of security. The brick is merely for self-defense." The 4 men chuckled darkly. "With our big brother present, she'll feel completely safe." Ling Han ignored them. A few hundred meters meant nothing to martial experts. With only several strokes of the oars, they reached the shore. Blackwood Island lived up to its name. Everywhere stood strange trees with bark as dark as ink, and even the soil beneath their feet was pitch black. When stepped upon, it felt unyielding and hard, like iron. "Where is the boss?" Big Metalhead demanded. "Big Brother is obviously still inside the cave," one of the lackeys replied carelessly. "Where is this cave?" Ling Han interjected. The man sized him up and sneered. "Boss Metal, your subordinate has no manners. Is that something he should be asking?" "Pa!" Big Metalhead's face twisted savagely. His palm lashed out, striking the man across the ear. "You answer when asked. What nonsense are you spouting?" The 4 lackeys were stunned. Why had he turned hostile without warning? They exchanged uneasy glances. "Boss Metal, Big Brother ordered that when he's inside the underground cave, he must not be disturbed. Since you've delivered the beauty, you may leave." "Brother, what do you say?" Big Metalhead asked Ling Han cautiously. "Deal with them coldly." Ling Han replied with a faint smile. "Take care of them all." "Yes, brother." Big Metalhead moved instantly. "Pa! Pa! Pa! Pa!" 4 palms struck out in succession. The 4 men's heads exploded at once, and they collapsed into lifeless corpses. Ling Han summoned Who Knew. The little girl was clever and mischievous. There was no need to worry about her encountering mortal peril. As for Zhu Zhuan, it was better she remain within the Black Tower. Though she was a prodigy, she could not compare to Who Knew's freakish nature. "The cave? Lead the way." Ling Han kicked Big Metalhead, who still stood dumbstruck at Who Knew's sudden appearance. A spatial spirit tool capable of housing living beings was something he had never even heard of. The shock struck him to his core. Big Metalhead hurried to the front. Ling Han and the others followed. Helian Shun Shui tugged at the hem of Ling Han's robes, her gaze wandering curiously over the surroundings, looking every bit like a wronged young wife. There were clearly many lackeys scattered across the island, but Big Metalhead carved a bloody path. As a flower blossom tier elite, he struck down anyone he encountered, ruthless and vicious, befitting a lake bandit's identity. Yet as time passed, he could not silence everyone. Suddenly the island's alarm rang out. "Ping! Ping!" Thunderous crashes echoed as 3 gigantic figures emerged. They were true monstrosities, humanoid in shape, yet towering 3 meters high. Their bodies gleamed with black metallic luster from head to toe. They were 3 iron men. Puppets? Ling Han's eyes widened slightly. Previously, many had mistaken the rock spirit for a puppet, yet compared to these towering figures, the rock spirit was clearly a living existence. With a thought, Ling Han summoned the rock spirit. "Beat them!" The rock spirit pounded its chest like a war drum and charged forward, colliding head-on with the 3 iron men in a violent clash. Though all appeared inhuman, there was a vast difference. Puppets were lifeless constructs, no different from corpse soldiers. The rock spirit, however, was a life born from miraculous heaven and earth stone, capable of growth and evolution. Now it stood at the peak of the flower blossom tier, only a few fortuitous encounters away from stepping into the spiritual infant tier. It did not rely on comprehension to advance. Instead, it devoured rare stones, absorbing their essence to complete its leap. "Go! Find the cave. Don't stop," Ling Han ordered Big Metalhead. "Yes, yes!" Big Metalhead nodded rapidly. Witnessing the rock spirit's divine might as it completely suppressed the three iron puppets, his heart trembled. In his understanding, these puppets were invincible at the flower blossom tier, impervious to blades and spears, resistant to sharp weapons, and tireless in strength. Yet, before Linghan's stone puppet, they were battered helplessly, nearly hammered into flattened iron plates. "Brother, please follow me." His tone grew ever more respectful. The balance in his heart had wholly tipped in Linghan's favour. They reached halfway up the mountain. A massive opening had been carved into the hillside, revealing a cavernous darkness within. A few torches flickered sporadically, casting faint light that barely illuminated the interior.
Pang, 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 pang!
Heavy crashes echoed as the rock spirit rushed over, clearly having reduced the three iron puppets to scrap. Linghan stepped into the cave and activated the Eye of Truth. Though the cavern was dim, his vision was unaffected. What he saw astonished him. The space within was enormous, as vast as a small town. Moreover, in several places, the outlines of structures appeared peculiar. A thought struck him. "The silver dragon ship that Feng Weiqi gave you? Was it excavated from here?" "Huh? Brother, you truly possess divine insight!" Big Metal Head exclaimed in genuine astonishment. This time there was no flattery, only shock. Linghan had not guessed blindly. The cavern's contours were strange. If ships had once been placed here, they would have fitted perfectly into the elongated depressions. In other words, Feng Weiqi had uncovered an ancient relic and seized its treasures. He had lingered here for an entire day, clearly excavating further valuables. Linghan's interest was thoroughly piqued. The silver dragon ship was formidable. The Origin crystal cannon posed an absolute threat even to flower blossom tier cultivators, and the energy barrier it deployed could withstand spiritual infant tier power. Surely the gold dragon ship would be even more terrifying. Since Feng Weiqi was still excavating below, could there be something even more astonishing hidden within? Linghan quickened his pace and ventured deeper into the cavern. Signs of excavation were everywhere. Many objects had already been unearthed. Presumably, even the three puppets had been dug out from here. After only a few steps, Linghan's senses flared in warning. His sword flashed in a swift arc. Hu Nu's reaction was equally swift. She let out a roar and lunged forward. Peng! Peng! Two colossal figures of silver emerged. They were puppets as well, but not iron men. These were silver men. Though not as hard as the iron constructs, their forms were far more human-like, moving with astonishing agility. Linghan's sword swept out and his fist struck forth. The silver puppets' bodies dented inward under the blows, yet did not shatter. Their forms rippled like water disturbed by wind, neutralizing the force of both attacks. Though still within the flower blossom tier, in terms of defense, they far surpassed the earlier iron men. What was rigid could be broken. These two silver puppets had completely overcome that flaw. Translator, Reverie, Editor, Kurisuling. Han's gaze trembled with astonishment as he exclaimed, "What kind of divine metal is this? It flows like living water." He slashed out several more times with his sword chi coiling around each strike like venomous serpents. Pooh! Two silver puppets were carved open in multiple places, yet the wounds sealed at a terrifying speed. They were as though formed from liquid mercury, split apart one instant, whole again the next, as if nothing had happened. Peng, peng, the two silver puppets counterattacked Linghan and the other three without hesitation. Though their bodies rippled like water beneath blows, their fists were incomparably savage. Each punch carried a horrifying surge of power, circulating with dreadful force enough to chill the marrow. "Come, let us measure strength against strength." Linghan laughed lightly. He sheathed his long sword, clenched his fists, and charged forward like a dragon breaking through the sea. Peng! His fists collided violently with those of the silver puppets. In that instant, the forearms of the two puppets undulated like surging tides, the ripples spreading from fists to shoulders. As the waves coursed upward, the force within Linghan's punches was steadily dissolved, layer by layer, until by the time the fluctuation reached the shoulders, the power had completely dispersed. Linghan possessed no such strange structure. He could only endure the counterforce directly. Though his physique rivaled rare metal of the same tier, and the impact upon his body was as though nothing had occurred, his internal organs still trembled faintly. With a single circulation of the indestructible Heaven Scroll, they recovered at once. "Mother of God!" Big Metalhead cried out, his face turning ashen green. He knew full well the destructive and defensive might of the two silver puppets. That they remained unharmed after receiving Ling Han's punches was entirely expected. Yet, Ling Han had taken 2 head-on blows in return and stood perfectly fine. This shocked him beyond measure. In his eyes, the silver puppets were already monstrous abominations, but Ling Han was even more monstrous than monsters. At the very least, the arms of the 2 puppets still rippled under impact. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "I once heard of a strange metal named Origin Mercury. In fluid state, it cannot be shattered by brute force alone. Presumably, these 2 puppets were forged from Origin Mercury, which is why they exhibit such bizarre properties. However, this substance fears flame above all." He shook both hands. The 5 elements chaos lotus fluttered gently, transforming all Origin power into the fire element. Instantly, raging flames coiled around his fists. He leapt skyward and charged once more toward the 2 silver puppets. Hong! His fist smashed into the hollow of a silver puppet's abdomen, sinking deep without obstruction. Yet if he withdrew his hand, the puppet would immediately restore itself. But this time, things were different. Flames roared upon Ling Han's fists. As the searing heat spread, the wound expanded continuously. The puppet was like solid ice meeting blazing fire. It began to melt at once. "Found it!" Within the broken chest cavity, a silver sphere shimmered, its surface densely inscribed with intricate symbols. The puppet's heart. This was its mind, its heart, its source of power. Without it, the puppet would be nothing more than a heap of scrap metal. Ling Han reached out to seize the heart, but endless silver metal surged forth, swirling to conceal it and prevent him from destroying it. "Trying to hide," Ling Han chuckled. Flames roared upon his hand, and as the silver metal melted away like snow beneath the sun, the heart reappeared before his eyes. "Hong!" The other silver puppet would not stand idle. It raised both fists and smashed them down toward Ling Han's back. Ling Han did not even turn his head. He simply extended his left hand backward to block the attack. Peng! Before the puppet strike could even land, Helian Xunshui had already stepped forward. With a shrill cry, she swung the brick in her hand with reckless ferocity. Under the smash, the silver puppet's entire body rippled violently and was blasted away, crashing heavily into the mountain wall. With a pa, it was like an egg striking stone. Crack and splatter, it collapsed into a heap of liquid. Yet the liquid immediately began to writhe and crawl toward the exposed puppet heart, clearly attempting to reconstruct its form. This girl's brute force was truly terrifying. To smash such a formidable puppet into pieces with a single blow. Ling Han reached out and fiercely seized the puppet's heart, wrenching it free. The silver puppet instantly collapsed limply, continuing to squirm as if striving to regain human form. Yet, no matter how it struggled, it could not succeed. On the other side, Hunyu had also snatched up the second puppet's heart, completely crippling its combat ability. Ling Han waved his hand and stored the bodies of the 2 silver puppets into the Black Tower. He intended to study them carefully. Perhaps their combat capabilities could still be restored. In the future, they could guard his parents as protectors. They advanced deeper into the cave. Not far ahead, 4 more silver puppets emerged, launching attacks toward them. Ling Han was too lazy to act. He shoved Helian Xunshui forward. She let out a shriek and swung the brick in a flurry. "Pa! Pa! Pa!" The 4 silver puppets were instantly smashed into fragments. Ling Han then calmly retrieved their puppet hearts, easily neutralizing this wave. Big Metalhead stared, mouth agape. The trio's combined might was simply terrifying. In his understanding, the cave's defenses were impenetrable. Yet before these 3, they were no sturdier than paper. "Brother, these are not the most formidable puppets. The strongest ones are golden. You must be cautious," he warned. Clearly having shifted entirely to Ling Han's side, there was no other choice. If Feng Weiqi discovered that he had brought outsiders here, he would never be spared. He could only entrust his hopes to Ling Han. "Golden? How strong are they?" Ling Han asked. Big Metalhead pondered briefly before replying. "I fear they have reached the spiritual infant tier. I have only heard rumors of such a guardian. I have never seen it myself." "Spiritual infant tier?" Ling Han's eyes flickered thoughtfully. Spiritual infant tier opponents were not overly frightening. As long as Helian Shinshui or who knew restrained it for a moment, he could concentrate and unleash 10,000 techniques. Return to one. That explosive strike would suffice to slay a spiritual infant tier foe. Nothing to fear! He laughed. They continued forward. The entire mountainside had likely been hollowed out. The interior space was absurdly vast. After walking for some time, 4 towering statues stood before them, majestic and imposing, each no less than 5 meters tall. Strange. I have never seen these stone statues before, Big Metal muttered, bewildered. A cold gleam flashed through Ling Han's eyes. Without hesitation, he knocked Big Metalhead unconscious and stored him within the Black Tower. Then he drew out the Demon Birth Sword. Though he now possessed 3 high-grade treasured swords, the Demon Birth Sword was unquestionably the strongest, a genuine 10th-tier spirit tool.
Ka!
The 4 statues trembled faintly, dust cascading from their forms. Peng, the 4 stepped forward simultaneously, radiating dazzling golden light. A terrifying aura spread outward, so sharp it felt as though one's skin would be torn apart. Spiritual infant tier puppets, just as expected. Hai Nu, hold them off for now, Ling Han said with a smile, as he began to gather power within himself, preparing to unleash his ultimate technique.